Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Get comfy as we explore the forever-changing domain of Vechor. Vechor is a domain of chaos and turmoil, where the land itself can be unstable. Lying east of the core, beyond the cold, grey waters of the Nocturnal Sea, Vechor's coast is a tidal marshland. Large, salt-tolerant vegetation and clouds of buzzing mosquitoes inhabit this border between land and sea. Farther inland, dense, verdant tropical forests are cut by the wide Nostru River as it winds its way towards the coast. At the domain's eastern frontier, the cliffs of Easan rise up towards a drier plateau that quickly becomes lost in the mists. The head of the Nostru is somewhere beyond these cliffs, although no one in recent memory has scaled them and returned to tell the tale. But that does not stop people from whispering about a man who was transformed into a golem by one of the Easan's twisted whims and ended up there. Vechor's climate is perpetually hot and humid, marked by a long and merciless rainy season. Rapid, seemingly impossible shifts in weather are not unusual. Storms that drop hail, sleet, and even snow can sweep through the domain unexpectedly, vanishing just as quickly as they appear. Much like the weather, Vechor's landscape has a disturbing tendency to shift over time, as fluid and unpredictable as the maelstrom. Most of these changes occur over the course of days, but rapid, violent shifts are not unheard of. This effect can be observed in the domain's settlements as well. The square, pale brick structures can vanish or appear from nowhere. Streets and alleyways twist and turn differently each time they're traversed. Even the heavens above Vechor are not immune. The sky changes colors, changing from azure to sickly green to brilliant purple. The sun and moon appear to change size with each dawn and dusk, floating to fill the sky, but dwindling to a weak blot of light. The capital of Vechor, Updock, is a study in contrasts. The people are well fed and happy, yet the city is a ramshackle maze of buildings, seemingly on the verge of collapse, and narrow streets littered with refuse. The domain's Dark Lord's dwelling, by contrast, is a sprawling structure of white and pink marble at the city's heart, its oddly twisted spires sparkling in the sun. Every Vechorite bears the brand of an E on their forehead, written in a local language. This is done voluntarily as an honorific for their king. Despite the unnerving strangeness of their homeland, Vechorites are warm and content people. They take simple joy in farming, fishing, hunting, and handcrafts. Vechorites are notoriously fickle, however, and tend to act out of emotion and impulse rather than rationality. They have learned to accept the ephemeral nature of their domain as the fact of life. It is no secret that Vechor's king is hopelessly mad, and these people believe that our land is both an extension and reflection of its ruler. Thus, they do not find it surprising that Vechor itself can seem as insane as their king. Their response is to simply take the mayhem in stride. Particularly startling changes in Vechor's landscape are considered omens of the king's mood or demeanor. The land's fluid character has touched Vechorite society as well. There are few social restrictions or barriers in Vechorite's culture, and virtually no taboos. Perhaps the only enduring social tradition is marriage, which is regarded as a sacred symbol of stability. Widowed men and women do not remarry, and unfaithful spouses are punished with death. Vechor is ruled by Easan the Mad, a reclusive wizard tyrant. Easan's reign is supported by a firm conviction among the Vechorites that he is divine. According to natives, Easan has ruled their lands for eons, and though this claim may be hard to accept, Easan has certainly reigned longer than the lifespan of a normal man. The king is never seen in public, so outsiders can only speculate as to his nature. There is no organized militia in the domain. When needed, the young men of Updock unite in defense of the town or hunt down violent criminals. The Vechorite justice system is simple mob rule. The one exception to this seems to be those who speak out against Easan. Despite the fact that he has no obvious police force, anyone who speaks of rebellion disappears in short order. No one knows what happens to them or how they vanish. Easan is originally from the world known as Orv. He was a wizard of some skill in a small elven domain on the borders of an evil kingdom known as the Land of Luz. Easan, having a bad feeling about the tyrant of this country, spent months trying to figure out what he wanted with the elves. Eventually, he discovered that Luz was actually a powerful entity, a son of an evil god, and that he commanded a legion of fiends. Shocked, Easan brought his evidence to the leaders of his nation. He warned them that the tyrant possesses a far greater threat than they believed, and he beseeched them to prepare their nation against future hostility. Eventually, his arguments convinced his fellow Wood Elves, and they began to prepare for war. Through his spies, Luz learned of Easan's meddling and decided to place him on trial in his capital city of Skulls. The tyrant's minions captured an elf and dragged him to be judged for warmongering. Easan claimed in turn that the demigod held that belief only because his infernal mind was incapable of nobler concepts, such as protecting peace. In closing, would have claimed that the tyrant could not understand his mind, or that of any mortal for that matter. To Easan's surprise, the tyrant agreed and expressed a desire to learn. In order to do so, Luz placed a demon spirit into an elf. Just as the abyssal spirit would eavesdrop on Easan's elven soul, the tyrant would telepathically observe the fiend. Sharing a single body and a single set of senses, spirits began to merge, and unable to distinguish his own thoughts from those of a demon, Easan's mind began to crumble. Elvamage tried arcane and divine methods of ejecting the fiend's spirit from his body, but nothing worked. With his sanity hanging by a thread, he left his homeland to travel to the distant island of Vechor, home to an ancient society of mystics and monks. Using elaborate techniques now lost, they succeeded in keeping Easan's demonic neighbor at bay for decades. During that time, the tyrant had thoroughly established a lasting empire. With his immediate foes crushed, he returned his attention to meddling Easan. Luz discovered that the elf has obtained a sense of peace, and infuriated, he called a magical cataclysm down on Vechor, destroying the island, sparing only Easan to prolong his suffering. With the fiendish spirit suddenly flooding his thoughts again, Easan fled far from civilization. He built himself a sprawling manor, its architecture dictated as much by the fiend as by the elf, and then turned to science in one last, desperate bid to cleanse his soul. Within his secluded dwelling, Easan engaged in experiments to isolate and analyze the nature of the immortal soul. His mind, now thoroughly merged with that of a fiendish spirit, Easan subjected any creature he could capture to his hideous experimentation. Finally, the mist arrived to draw him into the realm of dread. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. For all our sake, I hope that Easan will never establish a force strong enough to cross the sea and gather more subjects for his ideas. But for now, as always, be careful while crossing the mists.